Now, the graph of a function can be sketched by using a few points from a table of values. The first column contains the input values, and the second column contains the output values. So the first column is our x's. We plug these values into x, and the number in the second column beside it is the result of plugging in that number. Now, the best way to review graphing functions is to go through an example together, so let's do so. You'll be asked to sketch a function such as f of x is equal to x squared. So what do we want to do here? We want to plug in a few values for x so that we can get a few of the resulting y values, and then use these points to sketch our graph. So step 1, evaluate f of x with 5 different input values. I'm going to use -2, -1, 0, +1, and +2 for our x's. This way we can sketch the points closest to the origin. So when we plug in -2 for x, we get -2 squared, which gives us 4. So the input is -2 and the output is +4. So that is row 1 in our table of values. We then plug in -1 for x, giving us -1 squared, which is equal to +1. So -1 is our input and +1 is the output. We then want to plug in 0 for x, showing us f of 0 is equal to 0 squared, which is equal to 0. So in our table, 0 is the input and 0 is the output in the third row. Now we plug in +1 for x, showing us f of 1 is equal to 1 squared, which is equal to +1. So the fourth row of this table, we have 1 as the input and 1 as the output. And for the fifth point, we'll plug in +2 for x, giving us 2 squared, which is equal to +4, showing us the input is +2 and the output is +4. So now we have 5 ordered pairs from this function, nicely laid out in a table for us. And now step 3, we want to plot the points from the table of values on a coordinate plane, and then we will draw a line through those points. So we have an xy coordinate plane. We want to plot -2, +4, and then we plot -1, +1. We then plot 0, 0 at the origin. Our fourth point is +1, +1. And our fifth point is +2, +4. And since we know we had a quadratic, x squared, we know the line we are drawing is going to be slightly curved through these points. So this would be the sketch of f of x is equal to x squared. So to sketch a function, you want to use the function to plug in numerous values for x and then record the resulting y's and keep track of these ordered pairs in a table of values, and then use the table of values to plot the points on a coordinate plane and then draw a line through those points. So that is how we go about sketching a function. Let's have you try a few practice questions. Question number 1, sketch f of x is equal to -3x plus 1. Question number 2, sketch g of x is equal to -x squared plus 3. Question number 3, sketch h of x is equal to 2x squared minus 1. Pause the video, answer these questions, and then press play when you are ready to begin. Question number 1, step 1, evaluate f of x with 5 different input values. So we were given f of x is equal to -3x plus 1. So we are going to plug in -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2 for our x's and record the resulting y's. So f of -2 is equal to -3 times negative 2, which is 6, plus 1 would give us 7. So we want to record the input, negative 2, and the output value, positive 7, in a table of values here. So we have negative 2, 7. And now we plug in negative 1 for x, showing us f of negative 1 is equal to negative 3 times negative 1, which is 3, plus 1 would give us positive 4. So the input is negative 1, and the output is 4. We now plug in 0 for x, showing us f of 0 is equal to negative 3 times 0, which is 0, plus 1 would give us 1. So the input value is 0, and the output value is positive 1. We now plug in positive 1 for x, showing us f of 1 is equal to negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3, plus 1 would be negative 2. So the input is positive 1 and the output is negative 2. And for the fifth point, we plug in positive 2 for x, showing us f of 2 is equal to negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6, plus 1 would give us negative 5. So the input is positive 2, the output is negative 5. And now we have 5 points that we can use to sketch our function. So step 3, plot the points from the table of values on a coordinate plane. And step 4, draw a line through the points. So our first point is negative 2, positive 7. Plot the point. The next point is negative 1, positive 4. Plot that point. The third point is 0, 1. Plot that point. The fourth point is 1, negative 2. And the fifth point is 2, negative 5. So now that we've plotted the points, we can draw a line through these points to show us the sketch of f of x. So this would be the answer to question number 1. Let's now have a look at question number 2. We were given g of x is equal to negative x squared plus 3. So step 1, evaluate g of x with 5 different input values. And then step 2, record the input and output values from step 1 in a table of values. When we do this, we get g of negative 2 is equal to negative 1 times negative 2 squared, which would be negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 is equal to negative 1. So our input value is negative 2, and our output value is negative 1. We then plug in negative 1 for x, showing us g of negative 1 is equal to negative 1 times negative 1 squared, which would be negative 1. And negative 1 plus 3 is equal to positive 2. So the input is negative 1 and the output is positive 2. We now plug in 0 for x, showing us g of 0 is equal to negative 0 squared plus 3. This would be 0 plus 3, which is equal to 3. So the input is 0 and the output is 3. We then plug in 1 for x, showing us g of 1 is equal to negative 1 squared, which is negative 1. Plus 3 would be positive 2. So the input is 1, the output is positive 2. G of 2 is equal to negative 2 squared, which would be negative 4. Plus 3 would be negative 1. So our input is 2 and the output is negative 1. And now that we have the 5 points that we are going to use to sketch the function g of x, the third step is to plot these points on a coordinate plane and then draw a line through them. So the first point is negative 2, negative 1. The second point is negative 1, positive 2. The third point is 0, 3. The fourth point is 1, 2. And the fifth point is 2, negative 1. And now we have the 5 points that we can use to sketch g of x. So we draw a curved line through these since we know it's quadratic. And we wind up with this sketch for a g of x. So that is the answer to question number 2. Let's now have a look at question number 3. We were given h of x is equal to 2x squared minus 1. So step 1, evaluate h of x with 5 different input values. And then step 2, record the input and output values from step 1 in a table of values. So we'll plug in -2 first, showing us h of -2 is equal to 2 times -2 squared minus 1. -2 squared would be 4. 2 times 4 is 8, giving us 8 minus 1, which is equal to 7. So the input is -2 and the output is positive 7. We then plug in -1 for x, showing us h of -1 is equal to 2 times -1 squared minus 1. -1 squared would be 1. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 minus 1 is equal to positive 1. So the input is -1 and the output is positive 1. We then plug in 0 for x, giving us h of 0 is equal to 2 times 0 squared, which would be 0. Minus 1 would give us -1. So the input is 0 and the output is -1. The next point is 1. H of 1 is equal to 2 times 1 squared minus 1. 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 minus 1 is equal to 1. So the input is 1 and the output is 1. And for the fifth point, we plug in 2 for x, showing us h of 2 is equal to 2 times 2 squared minus 1. 2 squared is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 1 is equal to 7. So the input is 2 and the output is 7. So now that we have the 5 points we are going to use to sketch h of x, the third step is to plot the points from the table of values on a coordinate plane. And then step 4 is to draw a line through the points. The first point is -2, positive 7. The second point is -1, positive 1. The third point is 0, -1. The fourth point is 1, 1. And the fifth point is 2, 7. And with this, we have the 5 points we can use to sketch h of x. So this would be the sketch for h of x is equal to 2x squared minus 1.